Hello and welcome. I'm Julie Fogel. I'm the Director of Marketing at Kiriworks, and I'll be your host for today's webinar, OnBase and Outlook Integration and Connecting Your Content for a Complete View. Today we'll be showing you ways you can boost efficiency and speed processes with the OnBase integration for Outlook. This will allow you to import emails and attachments into OnBase, attach OnBase documents to an email, use your existing Outlook folder structure to automatically upload and index emails and attachments, and leverage workflows to streamline both human resources and account payable processes. Now, before I introduce today's speakers, I do have a couple housekeeping items. We have muted all of our attendees' microphones, but we want to make sure you're able to engage with us. So please do utilize the chat box feature to share any struggles or experiences you have. And you can also drop questions there or in the question box. We will be monitoring both of these throughout today's session. We are recording the webinar today, and we'll be sharing a link to the session for you to revisit and share with colleagues. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce today's speakers. John Swisher joined Kiriworks as a senior sales engineer in 2014. He's held various roles in solution development before becoming Kiriworks' tallest member, as well as vice president of sales and product in December of 2020. And from Hyland Software, Brandon Shade. Brandon joined Hyland in 2018 from sunny and warm Florida, and he is the sales solution engineer. He never stops learning, nor will he ever turn down a chance to play a new sport. Thank you so much, both of you, for being with us today for the webinar. Let's get started.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And again, looking forward to working through this presentation for everyone today. So, again, as it was just announced, my name is Brandon Shade, and looking forward to answering any kind of questions at the end of this webinar session. And really what we're going to be walking through today is really just simply, integrating with Outlook and really that fourth client for OnBase. So, what if you never had to leave Microsoft Outlook to get all your work done? Wouldn't it be great if you could access your OnBase documents, forms, and features directly from Outlook? How about approving or even submitting a request? Today we discuss why we call, that integration for Outlook that fourth OnBase client interface. It's really built on that Unity platform. The OnBase integration for Outlook provides all those benefits of Unity, from interface to installation, including many features and license updates. Today you'll really walk away with a whole new way to think about OnBase client access. So, really what we're looking at now on this screen is just bringing, OnBase to that Outlook inbox. This probably really looks like a very similar, look and feel in the background there, that Outlook client. But really, with that integration, we're just bringing that OnBase to that user in that primary application, that Outlook inbox. Just really increasing efficiency, reducing training, promoting adoption, and more. While there's little OnBase users can't accomplish from Outlook, let's keep the story simple. I want to show you the top three, most powerful features, the Outlook integration hat trick, if you will. First, we're importing emails and attachments via that drag and drop in a pre-configured Outlook folder. First, the module is really best way to automate that ad hoc import and indexing of email attachments into OnBase. Drag and drop to a folder and look at these keywords without any keyword entry.
Yeah, Brandon, this one I think for me, for someone who lives in Outlook every single day, just being able to simply bring in the email and or the attachments very easily without actually having to go into, we're going into OnBase, right? It just doesn't feel like we're going into OnBase, but simply choosing document type, and if we're lucky, hopefully maybe a single value for an autofill to fill in the rest of them. And then even being able to delineate and say, okay, well, this may be an email, so we're going to put this, just like you have in the screenshot, as that cover letter. But then once we click that attachments button, we can then upload the actual attachment as a completely separate document, being the resume. And I'm sure you'll get to that. I'm probably just jumping ahead, but couldn't agree with you more.
And then next, we're really bringing those, those workflow notifications, obviously to, those users within their email environments, but we're also including that workflow task pane. So a very similar task pane that, again, you're seeing with inside of the Unity client, but we're exposing those ad hoc tasks, that user interaction, the ability to view that document and more. It's really just providing those users that receive an email, to never have to, leave that Outlook client and, make a decision. And then, once that decision has been made, we can even provide a nice stamp on that email as really just a receipt of that transaction. So essentially just providing a audit trail so that a user doesn't have to worry about, okay, did I complete this individual task? They'll have that audit trail at the bottom of that email notification now that says, what action has been applied, the date and time for that individual task.
Yeah, and the other thing that I think gets overlooked here is that, this isn't, you or me sending this email, right, Brandon? This is OnBase sending this email. And just because of the existence of, that resume making it to this portion of that workflow, OnBase is automatically grabbing, content from that, like the name, the position that they're applying for, and putting all that in the email so that everything's right there for you. You have a link directly to it. But then another one that we at Kiriworks, we don't necessarily jump to that often because to us it's just normal, but a lot of folks may not be aware is you can go and view all of those related documents down over on the right. So, if I need in this scenario more than just, maybe the resume, and I want to look at, the cover letter or the interview notes from maybe someone that had previously interviewed them, I have all of that right here. And then not only that, just like you said, as soon as I'm clicking either hire or reject or whatever the action is in another workflow, it's moving on to that next portion of the workflow, and you have not even left Outlook, right? That was delivered to you. You weren't looking for it, and it's on to the next part of the process, which is a huge win from a time savings perspective in my book.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know from an individual person myself, I never want to have to leave Outlook, and this would just save me so much time.
Mm-hmm.
And then really, again, sticking under that hat trick mentality I was kind of talking about with those three major functionalities or most utilized, I should say, is really just that simple on-base search. It's Google-like with the ability to combine those document types, document dates, keywords, full text criteria. So really those custom queries, presenting right in your Outlook with little to no training and that most precise result set.
Oh yeah, I mean, I instantly go to, my role, I get a lot of contracts coming in and reviewing, and usually whenever I do get those, that's the first place I'm going to here is just pulling up the most recent version of that, and then I can easily compare or see, okay, do I already have this version in OnBase? And it's all right there for me with, again, right here from Outlook. So from my opinion, Brandon, you did hit the hat trick on what I use within this integration every single day.
Absolutely. So again, I kind of come back to this slide just to kind of caption, Outlook is that, fourth OnBase client interface. It's just because, there's so much more than just email import and simple retrieval. And then really the OnBase client, web client, or Unity client, not required for the install of that Outlook integration. So those users could really, they don't need those specific installs on their workstations. They can simply leverage the Outlook client on a day-to-day basis if that's really how they want to interact with OnBase.
Yeah, and especially if your work is being delivered to you, right, in some type of queue, why not have it all queued up for you in a single place?
And then really the Outlook integration, is appropriate when that user prefers to remain in Microsoft Outlook, as I've, really indicated, and they really want to continue to work with those OnBase documents. Or, the user already knows how to use Outlook. So why do we want to go ahead and have to maybe necessarily train them in the Unity client? While the Unity client and web client are great clients, again, if I'm just going to kind of stay there in my Outlook all day, why would we want to go ahead and spend that time training them? It just provides all those users the ability to work with OnBase documents simply directly from Office or that Outlook application. And then really, as I discussed the three major, we could call them functionalities, or that hat trick. Here I'm just providing all those functionalities that can be easily performed from Outlook, or your OnBase client. So on the left hand side, I'm maybe that user that's living and breathing inside of Outlook. And these are all those OnBase functionalities that I could do, right from Outlook. But again, maybe I'm that OnBase user, and I want to live inside of Unity. Obviously, I can still do all these functionalities right from here. It's just we're exposing these in both of those ways.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things that we hear often, Brandon, is I want to live in one place, and whether that's my line of business application or that's Outlook or whatever it may be, the more I can get to my day-to-day through a single client is just going to make my life that much easier. Now, a lot of these, I think a lot of folks were aware of, but when I look at kind of those bottom four, the ones that are obviously in there, but maybe not aware of great use cases, but and I'm sure you'll get this, but forms, anytime that I need to submit a request for a PO or a PTO day, that's something that we can, do right from our Outlook client. Reading groups being within document knowledge transfer, it's not the most popular module, but a ton of users from their day-to-day in HR and HIPAA type training use those. And if you're getting a notification in your email, why not be able to go right into those reading groups? And then, as I'm sure you're aware, dashboards are always a hit with everyone. That's something that, I'm not entirely sure that a lot of folks are aware that you can access that now within the integration for Outlook. And then I think you'll go over this a little bit later, but being able to send those imported documents directly to a scan queue, while that's not something super new, that is a newer feature. And for some of those folks that are on version 17 or 18 or older versions of OnBase, that's a huge win because it just takes additional steps out of the process. And right from that email or right from that attachment, you can choose the scan queue that this goes into, whether or not you're doing OCR or you have that form or that type of document trained. Again, just being able to eliminate steps here is huge.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'll kind of get into a little bit more of the administration side of, configuring, where those documents could go in those scan queues, and that all really can be done, at least the configuration side, right from that, right from your Outlook functionality. So I'll definitely get into that side in a little bit here, but yeah, great points. So again, I bring this page up, probably a boring screen or maybe a repetitive screen for everyone in that Outlook functionality, but Right now, we're just looking at that viewer providing that Outlook functionality. Again, very a similar look to everyone who's familiar with Outlook. But the important part is here, what just, that simple tab that's being exposed at the top where, we're indicating OnBase, now you are seeing within that Outlook client, but it's really just, that nicely integrated OnBase tab to, again, expose that OnBase functionality for those Outlook users. So, there's really nothing changed outside of that, but we're providing more functionality to that Outlook user to, simply stay within the grounds and the, where they're most comfortable, which is Outlook, and get that OnBase functionality.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, who really benefits from, this integration? There's really I would say a wide variety of people that are just simply, benefiting from this, whether those are the, those part-time users, or maybe, casual approvers, importers, researchers, back office executives. Again, John kind of mentioned filling out maybe, some different various forms right within inside of Outlook, maybe a PTO request. It's easily done right with inside of Outlook. And so really anyone really can make that benefit. As I've indicated already myself, I'm really living and breathing inside of my Outlook client. So I try not to move away from that client as much as possible, as I've, many emails that are coming in on a day-to-day basis. So if I can do stuff right from Outlook, that's really where I'm going to stay. And, to really fully expand on that PTO request, maybe you're that user that's submitting that PTO request initially. As I kind of showed that approval process earlier, it's moving from different user to user, and maybe all those users that are a part of that approval process all live within Outlook. So as that first step in that initial request or that initial review, maybe the person who's reviewing all those PTO requests, is living there. They can approve or reject that request right from, that Outlook client. Then maybe the management team has the ability to, report on which users or which individuals within the organization have upcoming PTO requests. It's just all those different OnBase functionalities are really just being, exposed and provided to those Outlook users to see everything that's happening all around, those PTO requests, whether it's, simple forms functionality, our workflow, capabilities of, signing off on approving or rejecting, or even reporting. I just mentioned a couple there, but, as you can see, it's very doable to expose those OnBase functionalities in one, type of example.
Oh yeah, and I mean, from your standpoint, I mean, obviously anyone who is taking advantage of any of the features are benefiting. My head instantly always just goes to approvers and, looking at a process that every single organization has is AP, right? And kind of going back to before where you had that workflow approval and then those related documents. So, your two-way, your three-way matches automatically showing up there. And for some organizations where, they may have an approver that gets, 5 emails a year, right? They don't want to necessarily remember how to go into OnBase, get trained on all of that. This is something that makes it extremely easy. And from their standpoint, they don't even realize this is necessarily an OnBase thing. It's just now I have new functionality with an Outlook. I can approve or deny and view the related documents, those, whether it's once a day or, a couple times a year. So it really helps from my standpoint, adoption as well for users that, are those approvers, but may fall into that Venn diagram of approvers and casual users as well.
Absolutely. So now we're going to, we talked about the, end user side, you could say, and what that functionality would look like. Now we're going to talk about really the prerequisites on the software side and, those administration tools. So, this is a great screenshot for anyone who's following along. Obviously,
Yep.
feel free to grab. The first two you most likely have. The last two are just available, that you would have to maybe contact Microsoft or possibly that Kiriworks team to, get that assistance on.
Mhm.
But as you can see, really, we really support those Microsoft, Outlook versions on that desktop installation. And I also like to call out, we do support, Office 365 with those desktop versions as well. So, I know a lot of organizations are utilizing Office 365. So, again, desktop supported, that is a version that we support as well.
Great.
Again, feel free to take a screenshot and to really continue to work with your, Kiriworks account team if you have any kind of questions related to, how Outlook can integrate with OnBase. But really just wanted to continue to provide any type of helpful, screenshots and administration needs, for your organizations.
Yeah, and I think the big ones, obviously are kind of those three at the bottom that you have all three of the S's is work in the cloud. Yep. Virtual environments. Yep. So work with the new IDP. Absolutely.
Now just kind of quickly bouncing back to work hand in hand with functionality and administration. We talked a lot about reporting dashboards, or at least touched on it a little bit. With reporting dashboards, not only do users have the ability to, view reports inside of Outlook, but they can also, create those different dashboards and interact with all those, necessary features, again, right from within inside of Outlook. And then really, folder configuration, that really kind of, it really, helps consolidate the configuration of all those Outlook folders. So, you can have those OnBase imports directly from Outlook. You can see, which folders have been configured, maybe modify the configuration or configure, any new ones. You could even, copy an existing folder. This is really, great for those administrators configuring folders for multiple user groups, but also for those super users who want to configure their own import folders. So, just a key thing to call out there, just like everything at OnBase, we can, restrict, certain users to those administration rights. So, maybe we don't want all users having the ability to configure these different folder rules. Definitely something that can be, configured based off of those individual user group rights.
Yeah, and I think this one, I mean, the flexibility that you have in here, there's the check to archive the message, the attachment, whether or not we folder them, send them into a scan queue, but then your rules down below, I think is huge, because all we're doing at this point really is we're saying that, hey, in this case, the message is the cover letter and the attachment is a resume. And you may be thinking, okay, well, great, we don't have any keywords on that yet. Well, a lot of times we don't necessarily need those. We want to get them into OnBase as soon as possible. And maybe there's an indexing queue further on. Maybe we're sending this into a scan queue, but what the existence of that resume likely does, right, behind the scenes is build out that folder structure, right, to begin letting know the HR manager we need to review this, we need to potentially reach out to this candidate, so on and so forth, and builds out the rest of that workflow simply by someone dragging an email into a folder, right? That's huge in my opinion.
Absolutely. And so again, to your point, John, really just the ability to send, any kind of documents or messages, attachments to a scan queue via that drag and drop import. We added the send to scan queue feature probably back in maybe version 18 or EP1 Foundation. This really indicates, from a drag and drop to a folder. So again, if you're leveraging, version 16 or 17 or you're probably not going to be able to get this functionality. So that's really where we continue to highlight to upgrade to the latest and greatest version of OnBase to really just leverage all those functionalities that we have really included. Another popular enhancement request, was really to include embedded attachments. Also, that has been added. This really just prevents files like signature cards, embedded images, or company logos from being imported as documents. It really only affects those HTML documents, parse through HTML for, identifiers and cross-check with, that attachment collection.
Yeah, again, I mean, seems little, but when you're utilizing automation like this, I think everyone has gotten a reply where you have every single person's icon in the attachment list. You got about 20 of them, and you got to look through those 20 attachments for the one that is the valid one. This just takes care of that for you automatically. Again, huge feature for me.
And then really the next, is really the ability to exclude, auto import, on a folder of existing emails. Almost like a mini backfile migration. Configure folder rules, and then right-click to initiate processing import of the emails and attachments into OnBase. Process existing items in a configured folder. Previously only new items could be processed. Finally, let's kind of take a look back at the backstage or file menu within Outlook. I personally love showing this because it solidifies Outlook as an OnBase client with Unity user options right here. Also another newer feature really introduced in that EP1 foundation is really the ability to see reporting dashboards and folder configuration. That can be added right within the OnBase tabbed ribbon here.
Yeah, and I mean, for those of you who are taking advantage of the integration today, and maybe you're not seeing some of those features that Brandon is showing, depending on your version, it may just be hidden from your configuration. Maybe when this was installed, you weren't taking advantage of workflow in your organization. So these are here. If you're having trouble finding this, please reach out to me, reach out to your account manager, and we'll get you hooked up. And if some of these are missing, then that's likely a sign that you should upgrade so that you can take advantage of some of these new pieces of functionality as well.
And in here we can also find those imaging options and folder configuration. So you probably saw it on the a screenshot earlier, but again, I'm just trying to expose all those different options that you can really see and view in terms of the configuration side, without having to leave Outlook. So as John kind of pointed out, if you're not seeing any of these options today, it might just be an upgrade that can accommodate that. So please, just continue to work with your Kiriworks team, or reach out to John and make sure we can assist where we can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of versions, I wanted to pop in real quick. We did get a question about is Office 2019 still the latest integration to be used with Office 365?
And I think you kind of cut out there, Julie. I think I heard, is Office 2019 the latest version? Is that accurate?
Yes, the latest integration to be used with Office 365.
I believe so. I might need to verify that, but I believe that is correct. Let me do some research on that one for you, and I can always follow up with the group to make sure we get that question answered. But I believe so.
Great. And before we move away from folders, is the folder we drag and drop to in Outlook or in OnBase?
Great question. I would assume for the folder configuration that we were going over, and that is an Outlook folder that you would configure to say, yep, this is where I drop my invoices that need approval or my, resumes from candidates. Yep, absolutely.
Yep, and with that as well, you could also have, as part of, what we were looking at, John, 100% correct, but we could also obviously have, import processes to maybe align those documents in OnBase as well. So it really can work both ways with that foldering aspect.
Yeah, good point.
Awesome questions, though. Please keep them coming. Promise we're almost done here. I want to leave time for more questions. So, really, I highlighted the, major 3 functionalities at the beginning, or really that hat trick. But as we kind of walk through, all 6 functionalities of OnBase are really represented because it is an OnBase client. Really, you integrate easily. The integration is the name. Measure, store, obviously are all in there as well when looking at that Outlook integration. So, just to kind of touch on some complementary, modules with Outlook. If you're on Hyland's legacy licensing model, here are just some of those complementary models that, depending upon, again, if you're on the legacy licensing model, you may need to purchase some of these if you want to use, some workflow or some full text search, etc. For that, for any of those customers that might be on, or anyone that might be utilizing, our simplified licensing model, really depending upon that user type, some of those users could gain access for some, if not all of these modules right from that Outlook integration as well. And then really just to kind of talk through that as an example, if you're not familiar with our simplified model, obviously I'd highly encourage get with your Kiriworks team and we can kind of have those discussions. But really for a standard user, if they're on, if you're on that simplified module, you would really benefit from, all these different modules listed. So it's really unlocking the keys to OnBase functionality, and it's really just defined at that user level and that user tier level. So, but yeah, I just wanted to kind of talk through that. Again, if any questions on that new licensing model with OnBase and Hyland, please feel free to reach out to your Kiriworks team.
Yeah, and Brandon, I mean, there's a lot listed off here, and I can think of, one scenario that knocks out about half of them. I know within our contracting solution, right? We utilize .comp to generate the contract, right? And we use OnBase to email it out. If the organization is interested, we're utilizing the digital signatures built into there. But then most importantly, I think from my standpoint is an overlooked one is the EDM services. So when that document comes back in, we're building a revision to it automatically. And then just like before, we're sending it to our internal approvers. But now within there, you have, in this example, that contract, the related documents. And when you open it up with EDM, you now have the built-in Word functionality that allows you to compare the one you received versus the one that you sent out, even if track changes weren't on there. So you can truly see, what those changes are, and then right inside of there, take advantage of the full text search and find if there is a specific paragraph or wording that you're looking to see if it was modified. You can use all of that. And again, from the 4th OnBase client, right?
Absolutely. So, in conclusion, I really just have, 3 things. Of course, I'm going to kind of stick with that 3 things talk track here. One, really, the version specific licensing been eliminated. One integration for Microsoft Outlook license will support multiple versions, of Outlook. Remember the Outlook integration hat trick, as I kind of have talked through a couple times already. Keep it simple, just import, workflow, search. And then Outlook really truly is that OnBase client, excuse me. just boosting roughly 80% of that Unity client functionality. And as we saw with the roadmap, or excuse me, as you'll see with the roadmap, a good thing is, it's only getting better. Not only have we been extremely successful leading with this integration today, but the future is bright, and the product is really only getting started. And then I talked about the Outlook integration as it is today, but looking ahead, I'm kind of showing a roadmap for Microsoft as a whole. We have the Outlook Office add-in targeting, general availability in Q3 of 2023, along with existing, SharePoint web parts that is available for, Hyland cloud-hosted OnBase solutions. We support added, Hyland IDP federated authentication. We plan to follow up with the Outlook 365 integration with the core Microsoft Office 365 apps in the 2024 timeframe to really enable customers to fully, transition away from the OBM forms of the integration, really towards a cross-platform integration, enabling users to really leverage OnBase capabilities from Office 365 access point of their choice. We would really love to hear feedback on the sequencing of the next investments in Microsoft's 365 integrations, particularly the value of integrating with Teams, OneDrive, Power Automate, Project, Visio, or OneNote for collaboration, automation capabilities, or retention of the content in a complement solution. So, obviously continue to work with, your Kiriworks team as if you have any kind of feedback regarding any of this roadmap, as Hyland is really, interested in hearing what our, customers have to say about this.
Yeah, and I think this is super helpful for folks to kind of see where Hyland's vision is. And for some of these, while we see Office, Word, Excel in 2024, those are enhancements to those integrations. Those integrations already do exist, which is nice. And a particularly exciting one for me is Teams. That's kind of my second most used application, right? And just putting this out there, we've heard from a lot of customers and prospects that they want notifications that aren't email notifications, right? Something they're in every single day using all the time, and Teams is one of those. And one of the things that we've been doing recently is actually converting some of those Outlook notifications to just being Teams notifications. If it's not asking you to approve anything, simply saying, hey, this item has entered your queue, you can now view it. We've had a lot more success and adoption utilizing those Teams messages now. So if that's something that may be new to you as well, again, please reach out to me, reach out to your account manager, and we'll kind of walk you through how we've been able to accomplish those as well.
We did get one more question through the chat. OnBase version 18 has this ability.
For Outlook integration, yes.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Majority of what I've shown today in terms of functionality exists in OnBase version 18, yes, if not all.
And is the Outlook client meant to replace any clients? I think they meant any other clients. So, I mean, we call it the fourth client, but is it meant to replace others or complement?
It's really meant to complement, I would say, because you're exposing probably, I think I mentioned, about 80% of that Unity client functionality to Outlook. So there's possibly a little bit of functionality that doesn't really truly exist in Outlook. So again, not to replace, but simply to be that fourth client and provide those users that live and breathe with inside of Outlook just another access point into OnBase. So yeah, definitely not intended to replace, excuse me, definitely not intended to replace, just to complement our portfolio for those clients.
Yeah, and I would add that, it's really dependent on the organization and what your use with OnBase is, and that's likely to change over time. There are some folks that may have very limited OnBase use, and that's kind of where they start doing their approvals inside of Outlook. And then once they realize that, I may need to take advantage of some further functionality, and they may move on to the Unity client or the web client, or even back to the Outlook client. So it's really dependent on, your day to day.
And I see another one that came through around being able to see the OnBase options in Outlook. And what do we have to do to achieve that?
I believe they're
I believe
referring
the version is OnBase version 22.1.
Okay. I would imagine they're referring to the button configuration that Brandon had showed, and within that, I believe within Outlook, if you just hit File, and then you should be able to see your OnBase options right on the left. And if you don't, please reach out to us. We'll help you find it.
Say we can give you a tour. I think that may have been the last question that's come through, and we are up against time.
Okay.
So I do want to thank both of you for your time today. Thank you so much for the Hyland SME, Brandon Shade, for joining John Swisher from Kiriworks to share your insight with us. Again, please watch your email for a link to today's recording. One last thing before I let everybody go, we would love your feedback. So please do complete the short survey that will pop up on your screens once we close out this webinar. So on behalf of Kiriworks, I thank each of you for your time and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.